All right, let's have a show. What's up? It's Hot Sheet. Scotty Braun along with Baseball America's JJ Cooper and Geoff Pontes. I feel like there's going to be some fire today just based on the topics that are on the agenda. Sometimes we're really informative and we take pride in giving you insightful, educated information, but there's going to be some opinion involved today for sure. So before we kick things off, just want to let you know a few good things. Number one, the show is back on a weekly format. So if you missed us on an every other week, it was for a very short period of time just to get a little break. And now we are ready to go. That's also because you've got tons of content if you're a Baseball America subscriber, which you know about. We've been telling you about that, right? Top 100 prospects per organization rank, the whole deal, right? And you can go to baseballamerica.com and sign up. Also, we have top prospect profiles per organization that just started rolling out. We will do one each weekday leading up to opening day. Okay. So keep swinging back to the Baseball America YouTube channel to check that out. And let's hit first move. All right, Geoff, it's going to be fun. So we're going to start with the Red Sox. Drama. Rafael Devers wants to play third. The Red Sox haven't given us a total indication of where they're at, but Alex Cora at least did throw out there that the promise made to him for third was made by a previous regime led by Chaim Bloom. I want to cover the prospect side of this. Obviously, give me your take, but also take me into what the future looks like, the immediate future for the Red Sox. Could Christian Campbell be so damn good in spring training that it makes it an even more difficult decision for the Red Sox, who have to talk Devers into potentially being a DH? What do you think is going to happen here?
Yeah, I think we'll see how everything shakes out. But I certainly think going into camp, if you asked me to make the lineup card as to what it should be going into the season, I think it probably should be Christian Campbell at second base. It should be Alex Bregman at third base. There is an argument to be made that those are their two best infield defenders at the moment. We just don't know what we're going to get with Trevor Story consistently, what the health is going to be like. Maybe there's another injury there, and Campbell has the ability to play some shortstop. I just don't understand when you build this team. We're coming from a year removed of Rafael Devers more or less making similar comments at a similar point in time that the team needed to upgrade and that he didn't want to talk about it. Well, the team went out and they certainly upgraded. They had a great offseason. They continued it by signing Alex Bregman, who I think, checks a couple of different boxes for them when it comes to what the team needed. I think a right-handed pull hitter, good defender, somebody who's won before, some veteran leadership, kind of a rah-rah guy. I think a guy that definitely fits the personality in terms of the Boston fan base. This is a fan base that's clamoring for a winner. At this point, there's a land grab that's up. This land that's up for grabs. The Patriots have been bad for several years. That's kind of who stole some of the thunder when it came to the fan base around here. This is still a Red Sox town. I think that's what their best team is. The other part of it is this is a model team. This is a team that absolutely values additional bonus pool money in the draft. I don't think, based on what they've said about Christian Campbell this offseason, what they've said about him for the last year, the sort of performance that we saw in AAA, I don't understand why they would potentially want to put themselves in a position where Campbell's up in June. And they end up missing out on that PPI pick. AL Rookie of the Year race is the one that's wide open. I think everybody's, obviously in the NL leaning toward Roki Sasaki, and for good reason, not to say that it's a done deal. But that's an area where they could potentially gain more money in the future, gain an extra draft pick, which is going to allow them to do some of the things that they do in the draft, moving around money, overslotting guys in the second round. It's how they got Roman Anthony, for example. I just don't understand why the team would just say, sorry, Rafael, like you're getting paid enough money that you can DH every day. And it's not like he's a good defender, and he's dealt with a lot of nicks and bruises and injuries over the years. Minimize that, become the new David Ortiz. You're still going to hit in the middle of this lineup. You got great run producers around you. This is going to allow us to put you in the best position as an offensive player. I get it. He's a professional. He's got an ego. He's been here for a long time. He's kind of the de facto leader on this team. So I do understand it from like a personality standpoint, but I think once we get further on in camp, it's going to become obvious what they need to do. And eventually I think that's what's going to end up happening. But I think this is just, his ego out in the public space. I don't know, language wise, how well he's going to communicate some of these thoughts, that sort of thing. So I'll, sort of give him a pass on that. But I do think that the best lineup is Cass, at least in terms of the infield, Cassis at first base, Campbell at second, Story at short. Bregman at third base.
I don't disagree that might be the best lineup. I also think that this is one of the things that spring training is very good at kind of solving, which is you have plenty of time here. It's not like that Bregman or Devers is going to try to, set a Cal Ripken streak of playing in, every game this spring training. And so you can kind of finesse this a little bit where you play Bregman at third some, you play Devers at third some, you play Bregman at second a little bit. I think, in addition to DH, the other part to me, now this is asking a little bit more, probably is going to be harder to get there, but seeing if Devers, like handing him a first base mitt and just saying, hey, we want to have a backup plan there. Because when we talk about best lineups, the thing that I wrote about last week when they signed Bregman, when you talk about this prospect depth, but when you talk about this Red Sox lineup in general, they had a lot of times last year where they were putting basically below replacement level players on the field. When Tristan Cassis went down last year, they really kind of had a black hole at first base. It was they were not able to ever find a guy to kind of just step in and fill that spot. This is a team that has a chance to really have kind of, especially because of the prospects, a lot of resilience here. Catcher may be the one question that you could say, okay, what happens if Connor Wong goes down? And not that Connor Wong's an all-star, or anything like that, probably even if he is healthy. But go beyond that, like, again, if Devers could play first base, and there are a couple other options that maybe he could do that, but obviously we just talked about second base. We have multiple players. Ceddanne Rafaela in this scenario is kind of bouncing around and a little bit able to play anywhere and play good defense probably anywhere. But Campbell can play second. Campbell can play kind of anywhere in the infield, and he can play the outfield. Trevor Story, your shortstop. Alex Bregman is a Gold Glove third baseman, but Rafael Devers, if something happened to Bregman, obviously Rafael Devers is your third baseman, has been for quite a while. And then you go to the outfield. We can talk about, like, with Christian Campbell, he's probably, because of his right-handed bat, the most likely to be there on day one, opening day. But obviously Roman Anthony is not far away as well. Marcelo Meyer is not far away. So this is a team that has, and that's for an outfield that has Jarren Duran, Ceddanne Rafaela, and Wilyer Abreu. Wilyer Abreu was really good last year. So, and Yoshida as a DH / left fielder as well. There's a lot of depth and a lot of resilience here now. And that's one of the things that Bregman does add for this.
All right, so I want to point out that while we talk about this, I keep getting notifications about everything Jose Altuve is doing. And here's a guy who's been an amazing player in our game for a while. And he's just like, okay, sure, I'll move to left field for Bregman. Oh, he's not coming still. If that's what you want me to do, all good. I understand that he's much later in his career, but it does paint a picture when you have a franchise player. And you do have a player in Rafael Devers who called out the organization a year ago, rightfully so, for not competing hard enough. And even said not putting them in a good position when something like that, the word position was used. And now, of course, we have this going on right now. So, Geoff, next layer for me is injuries. The Red Sox really have had a mostly disappointing result from Trevor Story, and a lot of that has to do with injuries. When he's been on the field, he's a good defender. So if we have problems again with Trevor and he's not able to keep himself on the field, what could that mean? Could that change how things look? And again, I know I'm painting a picture that you don't want to paint, but just giving me some depth scenarios of what it could look like throughout the season and if this team might have to shift, even if they do initially go with Devers at third and Bregman at second. Could Campbell play shortstop?
Yeah, I think Campbell could play shortstop. As JJ mentioned, you have Rafaela floating around out there. Prior to him getting injured last year, David Hamilton was a pretty productive player on this roster as well. I'd rather not play him at shortstop. I think you'd probably prefer Rafaela, and the team might even prefer Campbell. But there's some options there and some depth, as JJ kind of pointed to. So they have the ability to sort of deal with any injuries that might come up. It's a very deep positional group. It's going to be a pretty good AAA lineup, regardless of who ends up making the team out of camp. But I saw Campbell consistently getting work at second base, shortstop, third base, in between batting practice and the game with Worcester last year, taking fly balls, shagging fly balls in the outfield. This team definitely values positional versatility. You saw it with a player like David Hamilton, who they traded for and then sort of got him some run in the outfield, made him more of a multi-position guy. And certainly Ceddanne Rafaela, who, played a bunch of games at shortstop last year when they needed him to fill in. and, is a pretty outstanding center field defender when they need him as well. So I think, positional versatility is sort of the name of the game, not just with the Red Sox, but with a lot of teams right now. And they certainly have the guys to deal with, withstand injury or, deal with, some sort of move that they may end up making still.
Just quick clarification here, though. If Campbell's bat is ready, would you put him there over Rafaela and Hamilton, since neither of them are great infield defenders? I know Hamilton's an infielder, but Rafaela was so much better in the outfield versus the infield. Would you do Campbell there?
Probably, unless he locks down that second base job. I still think Rafaela is probably a better shortstop defender than the metrics kind of play out there. Range wise, he still does some things pretty well. He's also somebody I think could improve. When I first saw Rafaela, he was entirely an infielder, and I thought he was a pretty good defensive one, and then just became an outstanding, defensive center fielder. They have a lot of money tied up in Rafaela as well, all things considered. I think some people were a little surprised when, they sort of signed him to that contract, hoping it would be, a Braves stroke of genius like they had with, some of their young superstars. Didn't quite come to fruition. I don't think he quite has that ability, but it would be between, Campbell and Rafael. I just think he's a better defender. Both those guys are better defenders than Hamilton, who has had some rough moments at shortstop I've seen over the years, primarily in AAA. But I don't think it's out of the realm of a possibility that Campbell ends up being the shortstop if, Story deals with some more injuries, whatever that might be.
I just wanted to add, I'm going to throw Marcelo Meyer's name in there again, not for opening day. He will not be ready for opening day. But that said, if this happens in June or July, it would not be crazy to me to think that Marcelo Meyer has a good first half and we say, hey, he's ready. He's, there's a need at shortstop. Okay, Marcelo Meyer, there you go. I think Marcelo Meyer, I think there is still question with Christian Campbell, whether he is a big league shortstop. Especially, again, I think he's going to be a really good second baseman. I think he could play third. I think he could definitely play in the outfield as well. But Marcelo Meyer, I think there's much less question that this guy's a big league shortstop. There's still, some who think he might be better defensively at third base in the long term because he could really be a great fit there. But I just want to throw that. Meyer, this is a team that has upper level knocking on the door depth, which is different than having guys in A-ball. You're like, okay, let's see where they're going to get here. These are all guys who are ticketed to, at the minimum, be at AAA to start the year.
Yeah, good problem, but still a problem because your superstar could hold back your best defensive alignment. All right, we're going to get into more, in my mind, at least maybe not drama, but of a logjam with the Orioles. But first, we'll step aside for a moment. We'll hear from Arena Club. All right, FT fam, collectors, there is a new, better way to buy, sell, trade, or display your sports cards. It's called Arena Club. And Kratz, I know you love it. The FT fam's got to go to arenaclub.com/foul to sign up and get a little extra something I'll tell you about in a moment. But buying in the past was clunky.
It wasn't easy. But now you don't have to worry about any of the shipping. And it's all it's easy right there. It's guaranteed authentic too for me, so I don't have to worry about that.
Exactly. Arena Club uses blockchain technology to deliver your card immediately. There's no shipping delays. You don't lose your card in transit. There's no, oh, my dog ate the card and now you don't have it, so here's a different one instead. So right now, 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase. All right, we're back. I want to go right to the Orioles situation because we haven't gotten to go over this. Once they signed Ramon Laureano, I started to feel a little bit weird, JJ. I feel like they've had a weird offseason. I felt like they had a super weird trade deadline. We kind of bashed them on foul territory, and we were right. It didn't work out for them. What do you think of their offseason in regards to the young pups that they have and giving them playing time? Or has the leader of their front office overhyped some of their prospects when he says that, their number 10, I'm paraphrasing here, but like their 10th best prospect is, number 1, 2, or 3 or something in other farm systems. Is that still the case? What am I missing here? And I didn't like the signing. Let's put it that way. I know Laureano's not a ton of money, 1 year, $4 million, but talk me through, their layout if their prospects start to hit.
The thing I would say is we have the Orioles ranked 17th in our farm system rankings. This is not anymore this incredible farm system that is just overflowing and where all these guys going to fit. Now, that's understandable. Like if you go back just a couple of years ago and look at their 2023 top 30, their top 15 guys in that, most of them have graduated. And that's the guys that they had when they were drafting at the top. That's the Gunnar Hendersons, and that's Jackson Holliday, and that's Colton Cowser. It's Grayson Rodriguez. These are all guys who are in their lineup now. And basically I would say, except for Holliday, pretty well established. You still do have, you also traded away guys. They've traded away, you see it here, DL Hall, Connor Norby, Joey Ortiz, Kyle Stowers. These are all guys who were prominent prospects for them. And they brought back Corbin Burns. They brought back Trevor Rogers, which we'll see how well that's going to turn out. But the thing I would say about all of this is, at this point, they still have a couple of truly elite prospects. We're going to see, when Samuel Basallo is ready and how he fits in, whether that's as the number 2 catcher who kind of splits time with Adley, or as a catcher DH, or as a catcher DH first baseman or outfielder or whatever. But he's a top-tier prospect. Kobe Mayo knocking on the door, top-tier prospect. Heston Kjerstad, let's see how he fits into this group of many outfielders, because at this point with Kjerstad, the time is now. I don't think that there's any future plans. I mean, whatever you're getting out of Kjerstad, he's pretty much as big league ready as he's going to be. But Jeff, when I look at this, the real question is they're going to get Kyle Bradish back at some point. But the questions I think to me are more than anything are on the pitching side. And I don't think that they have premium prospects if they're going to swing a big trade now or at the deadline without including a couple of those names we just mentioned.
I think that's what it comes down to. There's a ton of assets here. At this point, you sort of got to, narrow it down, turn 2 or 3 players into one, 4 players into one. That's Dylan Cease that's out there, and you feel like there's a deal to be made. Move some of these prospects, some of these younger players, even some of the young major leaguers, maybe in the outfield. It could be a Kjerstad, as you mentioned. It could be a Kobe Mayo. Even Basallo. I don't think right now anybody should be off the table for the Orioles. They've fallen behind some of the other teams. We just talked about the Red Sox. I think at this point, you can make a case that the Red Sox are better positioned to potentially win this division. They went out and they got one of the best pitchers that's out in the free agent market. That was on the trade market. The Orioles let the best pitcher on the free agent market, or one of them, walk. And it's like you're not rebuilding anymore. You need to, reinforce this lineup. They went out and they signed, an older Japanese player who knows how many years you get out of that guy. Zach Eflin, who's consistently been injured. Grayson Rodriguez, who's consistently dealt with injuries. Charlie Morton, who's 37, 38. Is he 40? I don't know the name of, but I mean, like one of the older pitchers in baseball. I understand going out and getting the veterans. I understand going out and getting Tyler O'Neill to replace Santander. Fine. I really think that they got to package some of these players together and sort of narrow it, go out and get the big gun, whether it's Cease. At this point, we have to start putting together in the next couple of weeks who we feel had the best off seasons, who we feel had the worst off seasons. And at this moment, I honestly feel, despite them spending more money, I think the Orioles had one of the worst off seasons. They really didn't reinforce this team because we had bigger expectations for them with new ownership, with the young core that they've had, all that they've achieved over the last couple of years with these young players. They're really positioned to sort of take that next step forward and be a championship caliber roster. And they're a couple pieces away. It's just a matter of taking those assets and making the right trades and reinforcing this team and pushing forward. The fan base deserves it, frankly.
I just want to point out, though, these are all still problems that could very well resolve themselves. And I say that because this is the team that 2 years ago, had a great regular season, obviously petered out in the postseason. But we just mentioned that Bradish is a guy who could be back in the second half of the season. If Grayson Rodriguez takes a step forward, if Jackson Holliday takes a step forward in his second year in the big leagues, if Adley Rutschman has more like the entirety of his big league career before the second half of last year, there's a lot of different ways that this team could end up being really good. I mean, there's a little bit more variance maybe than ideal. You'd love to say that they have a clear ace and then a number 2 and a number 3, and they have more of some question marks and more of guys who feel like more middle to back of the rotation starters right now. but there still are the pieces here to be right in the middle of that. I'm probably a little bit more bullish on where this Orioles team is because I just look at a team that has Gunnar Henderson and that I think is going to get more out of Jackson Holiday and has a Basayo and a Mayo coming in and guys like that. They're going to need to help the pitching staff a little bit, but they've also been really good at developing pitching. And so if that all happens, this team still could be right in the middle of that AL East race, I think.
Yep, I agree with both of you. I like the team, but I also do think they didn't have a great offseason. They lost Burns and Santander, maybe reinforcements, but also I don't like them as much as Burns and Santander and feel like they have one or two playoff starters in Grayson Rodriguez and Zach Eflin. So we'll see what happens, but good conversation. Let's get to some college talk. Geoff, thank you. Appreciate the time, man. All right, let's go back to school. Yeah, nice. Kind of giving me nightmares too, though, when I look at the rulers and the pencil and the paper and the whole deal. But anyway, Carlos Collazo joining us right now. Let's talk college ball. All right, we just started things off. Carlos, how'd the opening weekend go?
It was phenomenal. You know what's great about caring about the draft and caring about college baseball is when everyone is really excited about major leaguers playing catch on backfields, we get to watch actual games with fans who are really into it, players who are going hard and caring about the wins and losses. It's a lot of fun to just watch real life baseball after anticipating this moment for weeks and months. I saw a lot of really great players this past weekend in Texas at the Shriners Classic. That's one of the better college tournaments in the country at this point. There were 5 or 6 players in our top 100 and probably a guy who we'll talk about today who should be in that top 100, didn't start the season there. But it's just great to have baseball back, games that matter, a lot of hard hit balls, just a lot of action. It was a really good weekend. And for those of you who are not into college baseball, maybe check it out because it's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, I want to get to, I think, JJ, a storyline that's kind of dominating the scene in the first few days, and that is exit velocity. Are these kids swinging them bats too damn hard?
Yes. I would say that you could ask a lot of college coaches who would say that. Because this weekend, the first weekend, we had a lot of these games played in big league parks and all. We kind of had access kind of to StatCast data. So we're comparing apples to apples here. This is not comparing TrackMan from somewhere versus StatCast data or anything like that. This is the same measurements that are being used for big league games. And we saw what can only be described as top of the top tier big league exit velos being produced over and over. There were 21 games that we had played in these StatCast stadiums over the weekend. And we had a ball hit 118 plus. We had 4 balls hit 116. You can watch your team, major league team, all year and never see them hit a ball 116. Only half of MLB teams did that last year. And we had 40 different players in those games hit a ball 110 plus. That's something that Mookie Betts didn't do in 2024. That's something Adley Rutschman didn't do in 2024. So the concern here is, you could say, oh, what's the big deal? But the concern is these aren't big leaguers. That third baseman sometimes isn't, Matt Chapman. That third baseman is not Nolan Arenado in his prime. The pitchers, there is some worry here that these players, again, not their fault. They're just doing what but the ball, we're seeing the ball come off the bat at velocities that are potentially concerning from a safety perspective, in addition to the fact that we are having when they changed the baseball in 2015, because at 2015, the new bats, they had kind of gotten to a point where there was not enough offense in the college game. And at the time, one of the things they said at the time was, don't worry, we're not going to see football scores, or anything like that. We had a 17-run half inning this weekend. We are seeing football scores. We're seeing a lot of them. We're seeing the home run record has fallen, but it's not, there's too much scoring. There's too much offense in college baseball. The real concern we have right now is there might be some safety issues. We've seen this in the past back when we had the crazy bats in the 90s, where players were really getting hurt. And I'm a little worried that we're edging back into that territory. I can't tell you, is it the bat? Is it the ball? Is it something else? Whatever it is. But I can tell you that we're probably seeing too many guys hitting the ball too hard.
Yeah, well, I'll just have one little quibble with you, JJ. You said it's an apples to apples comparison. I mean, the big difference between these players and major league players is the metal bats. There's a reason major league players are using wood bats, is because if these guys use metal bats, it would be a serious issue. Imagine Giancarlo Stanton with a metal bat. That adds a lot of exit velocity, and we're in an environment like you mentioned. It's one of the hottest offensive environments we've ever seen in baseball. I think there's also an element of there is better talent than we've ever seen in college baseball because 80% of the players who are drafted now come from the college ranks. More of the high-end high school players go to college. The college hitter in these elite SEC, ACC, Power 4 conference lineups are older than they ever have been before because of the transfer portal. We've talked about for the last 2 years, are the bats hot? Are the balls too hot? There's a reason why shifting is still allowed in college baseball. It's because if you're not allowed to shift in college baseball, you're putting your fielders in a position where they could get hurt. I mean, I was sitting there in Globe Life and it felt like every single batted ball was a rocket. You see 100 plus EVs consistently. It's like every hitter in the lineup is getting up to 110 miles per hour on fairly routine pop flies. So the exit velocities are huge. It's very clear, though, that the metal bats are a big reason for that. I think it would be cool to see college baseball players use wood. It would make projecting power a lot easier for the scouts who have had this issue for the last 3 or 4 years because of these hot bats. But it is definitely a different environment than Major League Baseball. There's no issue scoring runs. You're going to see home runs. It is fun, but at some point I do worry about what is that first incident when there's a 115 mile per hour line drive back at a pitcher. I pulled up the hardest ball hit from last year with the data we have. It was Jack Caglione, unsurprisingly, 121.7 miles per hour. That's a crazy number.
And the thing I would say with all of this is I would love to see, again, there's a debate here, right? The argument for wood bats in college baseball is that, they're going to have a safer environment. These bats are designed to replicate wood bats. They are tested. And the whole goal of them, that's what the BB Corbat era is supposed to be, is that they're testing the exit velos off of the bat. And it is supposed to, and when we've talked to the people who do the testing, they're like, no, these are within those standards. Now, the one thing we're seeing is I would say that the sweet spots are definitely bigger than you get with a wood bat. You're obviously not when you're sawed off breaking these bats that you do with the wood bat. But at the same time, I also can say very confidently, I know that these bats are more expensive. I know that there are also a lot of bat contracts out there and all, but the reality of it is it's going to be very hard to ever have 300 plus college baseball teams switch to wood. And now, if you said that there's eventually going to be a split and then the top 40, 50, 60, whatever teams do, that would be kind of maybe a more doable if something like that down the road happened.
Get all the wood bat companies to just throw it in. Free 99 NIL deals, something like that. Let's change the world. We can do it. Carlos, question for you. We'll finish on this. Obviously, we have you on. You mentioned draft. Give me a little buzz. What's something getting talked about in the first week of college baseball season?
Yeah, I think despite all of our talk about exit velocities, one of the most impressive prospects that I saw and that was getting a lot of chatter this weekend was Patrick Forbes, who's a right-handed pitcher at Louisville. He had a phenomenal start on Friday, 11 strikeouts in 5 innings. He was a guy that we had in the 6 to 7 round range on our draft board entering the year. It is very safe to say he's going to be quite a bit higher on our next update. I think at this point he fits as a top 2 round talent. He was sitting 95, 96 for 5 innings. He's got a ton of life on the fastball. You can see it here, him missing a ton of barrels. He was living at the top of the zone. I think he got 11 whiffs with the fastball in this outing. The slider is a mid-80s hammer that he used pretty effectively as a back foot swing and miss pitch to lefties. It was an effective miss pitch against righties as well. He's pitched in relief in the past. He's not had a full spring season as a starter. So if he can show this plus fastball slider combination as a full-time starter this spring, it wouldn't be at all shocking to see him go in the top 50 picks or so. He is definitely one of the bigger up arrow prospects in the country right now.
Boom, there you go. And obviously Carlos is going to be with us all college baseball season long. He'll join us time to time to lead us up to the MLB draft. Guys, this was great. Really good debate at the top. Got a little bit of everything. That's what we do here on Hot Sheet. Get a little bit of college baseball, draft, some big picture topics, the MLB stuff that kind of spills into the prospect world. Carlos, good to see you. JJ, thank you for the time. Reminder to everyone that we've got prospect profiles for you, and they're going to keep flowing every single weekday. You're going to learn about the top prospect team by team. So check out the Baseball America YouTube channel for that. We're back every single week. We'll see you next time.